Hey, it's Alex, aka Radio Runner on Instagram, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Welcome back. On here, I help you guys learn how to become more effective artists. And if you've been following along, this is a series of plein air paintings to go along with plein air pro, a challenge put on by Procreate and Warrior Painters. So, I didn't get through the whole month, but here's a couple more time lapses for us to go through. This one was of a train station in Beijing, China. And unfortunately, I do not have the references for these anymore, so if you just want to paint along, you can slow down and you can mute me and paint along with what I'm doing. It's an exercise in putting down quick flats in color and then using textures and repeated elements in unique and strategic ways. So as you can see this time-lapse blaze through, I wish I had the full screen recording. You can see that I'm quickly getting in precise silhouette detail with window shapes and using brush strokes in different kinds of ways. Similar to my other plein air videos, I will often use brush strokes and then kind of distort and warp them into perspective so that they look like they're receding on the ground plane or on the train, things like that. We're about halfway through this one, and it was pretty fun. These were quick paintings for me. They didn't last more than 40 minutes. So if you try to paint this, don't spend too much time, because it's not about the precision. It's more about the exercise in color and using your tools for speed. An interesting challenge of this was the reflections on the ground and the train. If you can identify what the kind of base color of the metal or the ground is, in this case I went with a warm green yellowish tone, and then you can add in the environment colors. So because it's going to be reflecting the environment around it, you want to have that environment first, and then it's going to warp and distort things. So you've got those cool and warm sunset hues on the train to the left. I'm also drawing elements like the lines, the lights on the top, and then you can duplicate them into a big grid and distort them into perspective so that you don't have to worry about painting those out each time. As usual, I like to finish off with some kind of compositional elements. I use color dodge and overlay layers to vignette and highlight what I would like to be the focal point. So I'm just adding in some extra color variation, using a soft airbrush to kind of add in some gradient work. And then finally, small details that kind of just set it in the world. And that makes for that painting. This next one was done in about an hour, and it was a very strong exercise, or a very challenging exercise in detail work and how fast can you put details down. So as a result, you're going to see me creating a ton of asset sheets, or in other words, creating patterns of shapes that I can duplicate and reuse on man-made objects. So I'm going to start with my loose line work. I don't use a perspective grid because I'm looking at a reference and just basing it off of the shapes. When you lay in your flats, you can start with some general stroke variation. That way there's a bit of natural grittiness to the brickwork underneath. But since you're going to be duplicating your windows, you can take the time to actually design them out. This way I'm adding in the iron gate paneling plus the different, the crown molding around the windows. And I'm using this opportunity as well to add these shop front kind of divots that are on this street side. So once you put those in, instantly you've got a repeated design that you didn't have to draw in, and you're already starting to work through detail. This image was a challenge because while it's not directly on, it's still a fairly flat reference that I was looking at. I wanted to use it specifically to showcase reusing assets in a way that can benefit you guys. But trying to show the depth in here on a short time limit is pretty challenging. Just getting some street detail. So what could have improved this even further was to go in and add harder shadows and just add a little bit more depth to all of the wall adornments. All of the things that are on this building. Stronger shadows, a little bit more thickness to really sell that these are ornamentations that are coming away from the wall rather than just thick lines. I don't think the illusion was really sold, and that would be handled through better use of shadows and extruding things like the gates outward. But you'll see that I am reusing assets in order to get this detail in really quickly. Like the boxes that the plants were in, I did not draw new ones, I just flipped them and I distorted them to make them look slightly different. I duplicated that lamp. I made those extra little, those overhang supports, and I duplicated them and flipped them. This way you can get a lot of that man-made detail in really quickly. And to finish it off is working on the car rendering. And cars can be pretty tough because they are very reflective and they take on their environment. But if you pay attention to artists like Henry Wong and Rob Ruppel, they don't do a ton of crazy fancy rendering. They use a lot of flat colors. They use opaque brushes. And their focus is on identifying major shapes, finding shape design within the reflections, and then painting that in. So I tried to keep that in mind when I painted in that major blue shape along the back side of the car. And that alone was enough. Then I got into the chrome detail. And once again, I am finishing off with final kind of lighting and mood adjustments using an overlay layer to make it feel like there's light bleeding in from the right side. Adding some gradients, and then finishing off with shadows where applicable. And that's going to be it for today. This was a pretty short one. Unfortunately, I didn't have full screen recordings, but I hope that these guys were useful. I hope that these were useful to you guys in some way. So thank you very much. I'll catch you in the next one. Happy learning.